Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to the Ultimate Doctor Who Marathon. This is the show where I take a look at every classic Doctor Who story, plus a bunch of big finish stuff, one episode a day, 7 days a week. And today, on the 11th of May, 2018, we are starting the season finale of Season 8 of John Pertwee's second season, The Dæmons, with Episode 1. And before I begin, I've decided I'm going to call it The Dæmons, mainly because that is generally what it is known as. So, without further ado, let's get started with Episode 1, which is really, really good, especially after Colony in Space, which was a kind of a complete bore in my eyes. Like, it was a really boring episode overall, story overall. There's a reason I only gave it a 5, because it started off great and gone off, but this one starts off great. We're doing Doctor Who does the sort of science versus magic debate. I feel like we're going to bring up Clark's Law, where everything, the technology advances to a point where it can't be distinguished from magic. And we start with this idea that there's this professor, and he is at this place called Devil's End, and he is at midnight. He is on Beltane, April 30th. He is going to break into the burial chamber, sort of as a publicity stunt, because he's got a book coming out, and he's got this idea that, hey, it's gonna be a great archaeology thing, but in the town of Devil's End, there's this white witch named Miss Hawthorne, who is basically saying, no, stop, you're tampering with forces you don't understand. I've cast the ruins, and you're kind of screwed. And she's an interesting character, Miss Hawthorne, because no one really takes her seriously. And even the Doctor admits there's no such thing as magic, but he agrees that she's right. They shouldn't go in at this Devil's End place, and we don't quite know why until much later in the episode, where we actually have the Master show up as, in disguise, as the Vicar at Devil's End, and he's sort of like, well, Miss Hawthorne, you're quite crazy. Nothing bad is going to go happen. And Miss Hawthorne, and he tries to hypnotize her. She can't be hypnotized, which is always fun. So that kind of screws him up just a little bit more, and he essentially gets really pissed. Mainly because it's like, well, because of course he's planning something. We don't quite know what he's planning, but the cliffhanger of the episode is him taking place in this demonic ritual as the hump gets open and everything starts to go, wind starts to go crazy. And there are a lot of points in this episode where some sort of magic seems to be used, even if it isn't necessarily magic. Like, the episode opens with a stormy night in Devil's End where a guy gets killed and his dog just randomly, and it's a really creepy scene. Christopher Barry directed this episode. Christopher Barry has previously directed for Doctor Who. He directed The Rescue in the Romans and some of the Daleks, and I believe he directed stuff for Patrick Troughton, but I can't quite remember that off the top of my head what else he's directed. But he's a really good director. He does a really good job at making this story seem this story seem real, and it also helps that there's a lot of location footage in this story so far, which is really nice. It's always nice to see when Doctor Who gets to go out on location. It just generally looks a lot nicer than the show usually does, mainly because you get these nice locations, and they're really, really decent looking locations. But what else happens is that the Doctor basically tells Jo, magic doesn't exist. Even though there are clear instances of magic happening, the Brigadier goes off for the evening. I don't quite know why. He just is like, I'm going off for the evening, leaving Benton and Yates to bug around. The Doctor and Jo head down to Devil's End, and the Master has this satanic ritual, and that's our big ending. And it's a really good ending. This episode is really solid at getting everything sort of knit together. And it's the first episode in a long time, at least since I believe The Mind of Evil, that I would feel good giving a 10 out of 10. Alright, it is the 12th of May, 2018, and I just finished watching The Dæmons, episode 2. And this episode, well, I don't quite know how to describe this episode, because it's a bit odd. You open the episode with the Doctor being basically being frozen to death, including the Professor. And a lot of the episode, the Doctor is out of action, which is kind of a shame because John Pertwee's portrayal of the Doctor is one of the most enjoyable things of the show, because he is sort of the main character of the show. It's Doctor Who in the title, not the unit show, even though, yeah, this is a unit thing. You have the Master, essentially, he really doesn't do much in this episode. He summons this gargoyle, who I know is called Bach, which is kind of funny, a bit dumb, a bit silly, but, funny nevertheless. And yeah, we have an episode where the Doctor puts out of action. You have Yates and Benton put on the scene. They fly in a helicopter and they notice giant hoof marks, obviously from this Azal guy that the Master's trying to summon. Basically summoning this Azal to his side to work for him. There really isn't much of an explanation of anything. I feel like this episode feels almost like it's the episode that it was meant to be an episode that doesn't quite fit in with the others. Like the story is 5 episodes long, which is a weird length. This episode feels, it's a really good episode, but it doesn't quite feel like it fits in at all with the rest of the story. Like it's this slowish transition. Robert Sloman and Barry Letts wrote this story under the name Leopold, and they essentially were just like, yeah, we're doing this story and we're having it do this and that for reasons. There isn't really a specific plot progression of everything so far. You have the Brigadier raised and brought in. You have Yates and Benton. You have, essentially, there's a dome, I guess, placed over the thing. Like, there's a random van that explodes. You have Miss Hawthorne still essentially trying her best to get everybody to listen to her, even though, they obviously should be listening to her now, because she kind of proved herself to be correct, whilst the Master still has essentially taken over the village. Heck, this episode I think takes place the next morning, so you have everything moving forward at a time, and tide waits for no man, and the like. So we end with the episode's really solid, where you see how much Joe actually cares for the Doctor, because it's Katie Manning's performance that is really good. Like, she shows that she cares deeply for the Doctor, and she wants his well-being. She wants to make sure that he's he's safe, and he's well. That the Doctor, because he's the Doctor, he's her best friend essentially, and that's great. And I also like how the unit sort of works. They're working together to try to get inside. Yates and Benton make it inside themselves, and Yates and Benton have this. Hardly, if they're a really solid double act as characters in this one, that's something that's really enjoyable. This episode is very much character focused. It's a big character piece. Like, the cliffhanger itself is the Doctor and Joe go back to the dig. They reveal that this the dig site was actually a spaceship, and the model spaceship. The model spaceship that was on the ground is actually a spaceship, and they're in it at the moment, and that's why it's several million tons. And then the gargoyle appears and menaces them, and that's the cliffhanger. It's a weird cliffhanger. The episode itself is just kind of weird overall. Like, it doesn't quite know what it wants to be. So I'm going to give the Dæmons episode 2 an 8 out of 10. Alright, it is the 13th of May, 2018, and I just finished watching episode 3 of The Dæmons. This is the episode where we actually get that famous quote where we don't quite know how to pronounce the story's title because they say they're daemons from Dæmons or demons from demos. Again, which is sort of why I've been cycling back and forth throughout this because I never quite know how to say it. It's not apparent. It's just like, oh, it's a way to say it. But this episode improves upon the faults of the last one quite a bit. Mainly in the fact that, well, the Doctor, we actually get somewhere. The Doctor and Joe are menaced by the stone gargoyle thing called Bach, who is kind of just a guy in a leotard, and it's with stone makeup on his face, and that's quite funny indeed, but the episode really shines with the Brigadier making it to the scene, the Doctor essentially trying to be like, okay team, this is what we need to do. We have these, everything in the human mythos has been evil, shows creatures with horns, in a hilarious little scene, where, everyone just sort of catches on, yeah, we get it, Doctor, everything's got horns. Well, it turns out these demons actually came to Earth before, and they've been helping human history, but they are amoral creatures. They are both evil and good at the same time. And the Master's doing, essentially, the Master is working on this demon called Azal, who is essentially the devil. He's currently the infinitesimally small, and the Master has to summon him 3 times before he will actually appear in his physical form, where we actually get to see the full form, that's interesting because the Master summoning Azal the second time and nearly failing, as he's menaced by something. I'm guessing it's supposed to be Azal, I don't know, we don't really see it. It's actually this episode's cliffhanger, which I find an interesting choice. It's also that the Doctor and Joe are in danger as well, but still, it's the Master who is in danger as the cliffhanger, not the Doctor, not Joe. It's one of those it's an odd choice of the production team to do that. You also have the Master essentially talking the Squire into, the Squire's gonna kill the Doctor. The Master does sort of well, I know you all, weren't we all townsfolk? Except with evil, where it's like, I know you all, you're having an affair, your wife abandoned you, and you're just a dirty thief. Ha ha ha, basically do what I say because I am God. I know all of your dirty secrets because I am the priest. Which, he's an evil priest. The Master is great as an evil priest. It just works. And that's just one of those things where it's like, yeah, that's a role for the Master. He's a priest and he is evil in that role. But also you get the sense that the Master has his plans, and even though this plan is very much it probably wouldn't actually work out because it's kind of a dumb plan overall. But yeah, the Master is still trying his hardest to do the best he can with the plan that he has formulated for himself, even if that plan is very ill-advised. And he does get the townsfolk on his side, even though you actually have the Brigadier, because the village is put in a heat barrier. There's action in this as a helicopter flies over, tries to get in, it gets blown up. That's legitimately scary. It's a lot of really good, really, really solid imagery, which I love. And everything in that is good, but you have just the fact that things go down that path. It's really solid. So you have the Brigadier not making it through, but still, that's just a solid episode. So I'm going to give The Dæmons episode 3 a 10 out of 10. Alright, it is the 14th of May 2018, and I just finished watching episode 4 of The Dæmons, and this episode, this story in general, it seems that the lower quality episodes seem to be the even ones, and the really high quality episodes seem to be the odd ones. Mainly, and by lower quality, I still mean this episode is really, by that I mean really, really good, but this one has some of our characters making some pretty dumb decisions, like, why does Joe sneak back into the crypt? I mean, yeah, there are booby traps for the doctor set for the master, and Yates has to come and save her from them. Well, not really save her, but stop her from accidentally triggering them, and then they hide as the master does his other ceremony, while the brigadier still doesn't get through. Like, come on, that's just padding it out. Really, the brigadier really should have made it through by now. He's been working on this for a while. He should have been able to get through the barrier by now. It's not like, I mean, it's not like the episode really, the episode's been great without it. Like, Benton and Yates especially have some amazing banter, but it's just, by this point, it's almost being done for comedic purposes, and the comedy just isn't very good. It's kind of actually quite annoying. You have the brigadier and this Osgood fellow essentially being like, oh, it's not, we are trying our hardest, but we can't get through. And again, we pick up from that cliffhanger of the master. We actually get to hear us all for the first time, and he has a great voice. He's voiced by Stephen Thorne, who just gives this booming performance, where every word is essentially being yelled at the top of the actor's lungs, and that's enjoyable. It's enjoyable, a bit silly, but fun nonetheless. Like, it's a really fun portrayal for the villain. Like, it knows that, this isn't necessarily the most, as an episode, it's not the most realistic, but it's pretty, it's pretty fun nevertheless. Like, it knows that what it wants to be, and that it's not quite, satisfied with the fact that everyone is just sort of there. You have the doctor actually tied up because it's May Day celebration. So the villagers, as they do their May Day thing, and they dance around the maypole, and that basically means they make a lot of fuss over it. Like, they end up tying the doctor up, which, like, it's funny because I'm reading the credits of the episode. You have, like, Morris dancers credited as, like, a company, like a dance company, which is, I found that kind of funny, just like a funny credit. It's going to go up there with, like, Insect Movement by Rosalind de Winter in the terms of humorous scale. In Doctor Who, like, it's a genuinely funny credit. Like, it really is. I also enjoy the fact that the way the Doctor gets out of being tied up by the Morris dancers is that he says, "I am the great wizard Quee-Quai-Quad," or at least that's what Olive Hawthorne tells him. And Miss Hawthorne is hilarious. She just sort of flirts with Benton the entire episode. The episode is good. It's just it's padded. Like, this is a really padded episode, and it feels like that's where a lot of the episode fails. So I'm going to give The Dæmons episode 4 a 7 out of 10. Alright, it is still the 14th of May 2018, and I just finished watching episode 5 of The Dæmons. I've decided I'm going to call it Dæmons from now on, just because that's simpler. And that's a bit more accurate to what the actual title of the serial is. That being said, let's get started. Stephen Thorne as Azal is a highlight of this episode, mainly because the man has this booming voice. And my theory is proved right with the better quality episodes, mainly being the odd ones. Though this one isn't perfect. It goes on for a bit too long, and it just doesn't quite do it. It has quite a few really good scenes. It has the famous chap with the wings there, 5 rounds rapid. You finally get the brigadier to actually get in, to actually, you know, get into the story, and as soon as that happens, well, what do I say? Nothing, the Brigadier doesn't really affect the story too terribly much. Like, yeah, he's there, and yeah, you know, he does stuff, but it's just not that very much, it doesn't do very much to be an amazing, perfect story, like a lot of people say it was, mainly because, so the first real, sort of thing that happens with this story is that everything, you know, the Doctor has to really reason with the demon Azal to let him have the world stay alive. Azal is ready to give his powers to the Doctor, mainly because he sees the Doctor as a bit more intelligent, I guess. It's not really quite explained why. Unless we had this whole thing where it's like, we build up the threat of remember Atlantis, because if that's what happened, because the destruction of Atlantis was, you know, sort of what was one of those things that really caused a problem. Like, it blew everything up. It was one of those things where it was the demons, even though, you know, the Underworld Mist obviously contradicts that, and oddly enough, at the end of the next story, you're actually going to get another change to things, with who really, you know, with the Time Monster having another explanation for Atlantis, because there are 3 explanations for Atlantis, as is much often mocked. It's Jo who actually saves the day, which is interesting because she basically says, no, the world is good, and Azal believes her, and the Doctor's a good man, because Azal's going to kill the Doctor. He begins to electrocute him, and that's that. And then you have this big action scene, which is, granted, a really, really good action scene. You know, things are really building up to the complete story. You know, everything just sort of happens the way it does. It's a really decent way of going on, but it's got problems. Like, I love the action scene. There's this big ending where, you know, everyone dances around the maypole, and Mike Yates asks the Brigadier to dance, and he refuses, and they go for a pint, and we have and the Master actually gets captured. So the entire season-long arc of the Master coming to Earth and causing trouble for the Doctor, well, it comes to a close with a happy ending, because, well, the Master's captured, everything's all good, nothing bad's gonna happen anymore. But it's just not a very, very good ending. Like, there's still quite a few problems with it. It's one of those things that it's slow in places. So I'm going to give The Dæmons, episode 5, an 8 out of 10. That being said, we average up the episodes 1 through 5 scores to give The Dæmons a total score of 8.8 out of 10. Thank you so much, everybody, for watching this episode of the Ultimate Doctor Who Marathon, released on time this time, and of course, because it's summer, I'm very probably going to get much more episodes released on time and more episodes released quickly as I'm able to double up on days, which is, hopefully will get us back on track. Because I really do enjoy this series. Please, if you enjoy this series, please leave a like, comment. I know this one's a bit controversial because most people give this episode a 10 out of 10. And subscribe if you haven't already. And I'll see you next time on when the Ultimate Doctor Who Marathon returns, when we start Season 9 of Doctor Who, John Pertwee's third season, with the return of the Daleks in Day of the Daleks.